No warnings, just karma.
My mother was only 20 when she gave birth to me. My biological father never wanted children and disappeared before I was born. They had only been dating for a few months when she became pregnant, and she gave him the option to leave, which he did. She never asked him for child support, saying their breakup was too bitter to demand anything, and that cutting ties quietly was easier for both of them. My grandparents stepped in to help her finish her education and secure a stable job, becoming the foundation that allowed me to grow up with some stability. As a child, I believed my mother and I were a team, that no matter what happened, she would always be there for me. When I was 8, she started dating her coworker, Harry. We weren't close, but we got along well enough to coexist. A few years later, they married. I tried to accept it, thinking family meant compromise and patience. 4 years into their marriage, my mother became pregnant with twins. Everyone in the house celebrated, including me. I thought this was a time for joy, not knowing it was the moment my place in the family started to vanish. After the twins were born, things began to change. My mother started distancing herself. Every attempt I made to help or connect seemed to irritate her. I felt invisible in my own home, like a shadow of a child who used to belong. 6 months later, they sat me down and told me I could no longer live in the house. I had just turned 16. They blamed the financial burden of supporting 2 newborns, saying the resources and money were needed for the twins, the children who deserved it more. Hearing that, I understood. I was no longer wanted. I didn't argue. I tried to reason with them. I offered to get a job to contribute to lighten the financial load. My mother shut me down immediately, saying she wanted to save every penny and resource for the twins. That phrase cut deeper than anything else she could have said. It wasn't about money. It was about being pushed out, made to feel like I didn't belong. They didn't officially evict me, but their message was clear: leave or keep feeling unwanted. I packed my things quietly, not knowing where I would go, and went straight to my grandparents' house. I was lucky to have them, but I knew their health and age made it difficult for them to fully take on the responsibility of a teenager. I started working part-time to support myself, to avoid being a burden, and to claim some control over my life. My mother knew where I was, but she rarely checked in. When she did visit with the twins, she hardly acknowledged me. Conversations were brief and formal, almost as if I were a stranger in the house I had grown up in. She seemed relieved without me around, and that realization hurt more than words could express. I understood then that this wasn't just neglect, it was a deliberate choice, a message that my presence was no longer part of her plans. Living with my grandparents was both a relief and a challenge. They welcomed me with open arms, but I knew the strain my presence added to their already aging bodies. I didn't want to be a burden. I got a part-time job, balancing work and school, and slowly learned what it meant to survive on my own. Each paycheck, each small accomplishment, felt like a tiny reclaiming of my dignity. My mother rarely checked on me, and when she did, it was perfunctory, formal, never warm, never motherly. When it came time for college, the reality of my independence hit me hard. My mother refused to help financially, claiming the twins' future came first. I had to navigate everything on my own: student loans, housing, textbooks, tuition. One of my uncles, understanding my situation, co-signed my loan, but even that was a carefully measured favor. I worked tirelessly during college, juggling shifts and classes, learning to fend for myself in a world that my own mother had abandoned me to. Graduation day arrived, and my mother was nowhere to be seen. Only my grandparents attended, beaming with pride for me. I had no one else. That day, I realized my success would be mine alone. No congratulations from her, no recognition, no acknowledgement. From that moment forward, I vowed to rely on no one but myself. I built a life from scratch, paying my own bills, managing my own debts, and slowly rising through the ranks in my career. Every step was a testament to my resilience, a quiet victory over the family that had once cast me aside. Years passed, and the small victories of my early career eventually snowballed into something significant. I climbed the ranks slowly, quietly, without the kind of mentorship or support that many of my peers took for granted. I learned to navigate office politics, earn respect through results, and carry the weight of responsibility on my own shoulders. Every promotion, every acknowledgement was a quiet affirmation that I was capable, that I could succeed without my mother's approval or involvement. Then, one day, my life changed in a way I hadn't anticipated. I received a major promotion to a senior management position. It was one of the highest roles I had ever imagined, and I became one of the youngest people in the company to achieve it. I didn't broadcast it. I told only a handful of trusted colleagues who had been there since the beginning, and of course, my uncle, the same one who had helped me with college loans. But the news spread faster than I expected. My uncle, with the best intentions, mentioned it to my mother during a family gathering. I had no idea he had done so. A few days later, my mother and Harry appeared at my doorstep, unannounced, insisting on speaking with me. Against the voice in my head telling me not to let them in, I opened the door, clinging to a faint hope that maybe, just maybe, they had come to apologize after all these years. Instead, the conversation began the way I had feared it would. They didn't congratulate me. They didn't acknowledge my struggles or the sacrifices I had made. They accused me of shutting them out and told me I should have understood why they had put the twins first. They framed my independence and my lack of contact as a slight, a deliberate rejection, and it felt like they were trying to rewrite the past, to gaslight me into feeling guilty for the only choices I had: survival and self-preservation. Then reality hit me like a thunderbolt. They didn't just want attention or acknowledgement, they wanted financial help. Their business had failed, they were struggling. The twins were nearing college age, and now, after all these years, they had come to demand that I pay for their children's education. The room felt heavy with entitlement, their words sharp, each sentence designed to make me feel obligated. But I was no longer a child. I was a grown adult who had worked for every penny, who had survived betrayal and neglect, and I wasn't about to be manipulated now. I told them no immediately. I reminded them that I had paid my own way through college, that I had survived when they had refused to support me, that the twins had always been their priority, not me. I refused to be guilted into covering the cost of a life I had no part in shaping. I asked them to leave. The air in the room shifted from entitlement to anger as they realized I wouldn't give in. For the first time, I felt the balance of power shift in my favor, not through force, but through unwavering resolve. They didn't leave quietly. Their anger spilled over into accusations, calling me ungrateful, selfish, and cold-hearted. My mother insisted I owed her for raising me, as if abandonment and neglect could ever be repaid with money or compliance. I reminded her calmly that being my mother wasn't a favor. It was a responsibility, one she had chosen to abandon the moment I became inconvenient. Their words grew sharper, but I held my ground. I refused to let them manipulate me emotionally or financially. When they still wouldn't go, I told them I would call the police if they didn't leave immediately. Only then did they retreat, muttering insults, their entitlement colliding with the reality that I was no longer the child they could control. But the harassment didn't stop. Emails came, messages, subtle threats, attempts to guilt me for everything from my childhood to my current success. They tried to make me feel responsible for their failures, for their choices, and even for the future of the twins. The audacity of it was staggering. Then one day, my mother took it too far. She appeared at my workplace unannounced, refusing to leave when told, demanding to speak to me. I was not there that day, and I made it clear through the receptionist that any further intrusion could have legal consequences. Not long after, she showed up outside my home. I told her directly that if she did not leave, I would call the police. She attacked me, throwing me to the ground and attempting to grab my phone. I was taken aback, but I reacted quickly, using my strength to subdue her until my neighbors, alerted by the commotion, intervened and called the authorities. The police arrived, and I pressed charges. I also contacted a lawyer immediately and applied for a restraining order. For the first time in my life, the law was firmly on my side. Harry left her and took the twins with him, cutting off her access to further influence. My grandparents, tired of her manipulation and aggression, stepped back as well. She was left alone, facing the consequences of her actions. For the first time, I realized the balance had truly shifted. I was safe, empowered, and in control of my life, something she had never expected or prepared for. With the restraining order in place and the police involved, I finally felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I had spent years surviving, building, and protecting myself from the very people who were supposed to care for me. Now, the boundaries were clear, legal, and unbreakable. I didn't need anyone's approval, sympathy, or recognition. I had earned everything myself, from my career to my home, to the life I had painstakingly built piece by piece. My mother's choices had left her isolated. Harry had taken the twins, my grandparents had distanced themselves, and I no longer allowed her words or presence to enter my life. I realized something vital. Her anger and bitterness were not my burden to carry. My success and stability were the direct results of my own perseverance, not her approval or validation. I finally allowed myself to breathe. I could plan my future without fear of intrusion or manipulation. I began exploring a larger home, a fresh start, a life untainted by the chaos of my past. I knew I was free, not just financially or legally, but emotionally. Every promotion, every achievement, every moment of peace was mine alone, and no one could take it away. I succeeded not to spite her, but to prove to myself that I was capable. I dominated my circumstances with intelligence, foresight, and resilience. I was no longer a victim. I was a survivor, a strategist, and finally, at peace. If this story inspired you or moved you in any way, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more real-life stories of resilience, justice, and empowerment.